Most people who die from a stroke in their sleep had no idea there was a problem. They checked their blood pressure that morning. The top number looked fine. Their doctor said, "Keep an eye on it." And then they went to bed and never woke up. Not because their blood pressure was too high, because the wrong number was too high, and nobody told them which one to watch. I'm Dr. Alan Miller, and after 18 years treating cardiovascular risk in older adults, I've seen firsthand what happens when these warning signs go ignored. What I'm about to share with you is the single most misunderstood number in blood pressure medicine, and understanding it could be the difference between waking up tomorrow and not. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which blood pressure number is most dangerous while you sleep, why it causes strokes without warning, what your readings actually need to look like at night, and precisely what you can do starting today to protect yourself. And I need to warn you, the number we're talking about is not the one most people think. Stay with me, because this matters more than almost anything I could tell you. Here's the truth that most people never hear clearly enough. When you sit in your doctor's office for a standard blood pressure check, you get two numbers, 120/80, 140/90. You focus on the big number, the top one, and so does almost everyone around you. That top number, called systolic pressure, is the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats. But the bottom number, the diastolic, is the pressure between beats, when your heart is resting. And that is where the real overnight danger hides. Most appointments are 12 minutes long. There is no time to explain which number shifts the most while you sleep, or why that matters more after 65 than almost any other health fact you'll ever learn. It is not your fault. The system simply wasn't built to explain this clearly enough. But today, we fix that. Let me start with what actually happens to your body when you close your eyes at night. For most healthy adults, blood pressure drops naturally during sleep, a process called nocturnal dipping. Think of it like your cardiovascular system shifting into a lower gear. The heart slows, the blood vessels relax, pressure falls by 10 to 20%. Your body uses this window to repair artery walls, regulate inflammation, and clear metabolic waste from the brain. This nightly restoration is not optional. It is absolutely essential. But here is where it gets dangerous for millions of people over 65. In a significant portion of older adults, that nighttime dip never happens. Blood pressure stays elevated all night long. Or worse, it actually rises. These individuals are called non-dippers, and if you are one of them, your arteries are never getting that essential overnight rest. Your brain, your heart, your kidneys, all of them are working against a pressure system that should have softened hours ago. And the number that most reliably signals this problem is not the systolic. It is the diastolic. Stay with me, because what comes next is the part most people never hear from their doctor, and it changes everything about how you read your own blood pressure. Let me tell you about Walter, a 71-year-old retired school principal who came to see me after his wife noticed something unusual. He was fine during the day, blood pressure around 135/82, which nobody flagged as a crisis. But his wife had started checking his pressure at night with a home monitor. At 2 in the morning, his diastolic was consistently holding at 94, 97, even 101. His systolic was actually calmer at night. But that bottom number refused to come down. Walter had what we call isolated nocturnal diastolic hypertension, and he had no symptoms whatsoever. No headaches, no dizziness, no chest tightness. His arteries, however, were under sustained pressure for 6 to 8 hours every single night while his body was trying to repair itself. Within 3 months of addressing it, his sleep quality improved, his morning grogginess disappeared, and his cardiologist noted measurable improvements in his arterial flexibility. Walter's case is not unusual. It is deeply common. Now let me explain why the diastolic number is so specifically dangerous during sleep, and why the stroke risk it carries happens silently. During the day, your body has a natural buffer against blood pressure spikes. Movement, posture changes, and the simple act of being upright all help regulate how hard your arteries are working. At night, those buffers are gone. You are horizontal. You are still. Your body is entirely dependent on the natural dip to protect your brain and heart. When the diastolic pressure stays elevated during this window, a cascade of damage begins. The small arteries deep inside the brain, the ones that supply your white matter and your memory centers, are subjected to hours of unrelenting pressure. Over time, these tiny vessels develop micro tears, lose elasticity, and eventually rupture. That rupture, when it happens during sleep, is a hemorrhagic stroke. There is no warning. There is no pain that wakes you up in time. By the time morning comes, the damage is already done. Research has consistently shown that people whose blood pressure does not dip normally at night face substantially higher rates of stroke, heart attack, and kidney failure, even when their daytime readings look perfectly acceptable. One major study found that every 10 millimeter increase in nighttime diastolic pressure was associated with a significant rise in cardiovascular events. The nighttime reading is not a bonus data point. In older adults especially, it is arguably the most important number you have. I want you to pause here for a moment. Think about the last time someone checked your blood pressure at night. Not in a waiting room at 10 in the morning. Not after you've had your coffee and driven through traffic. At night. While you were relaxed. While your body was doing what it should be doing. For most of my patients, the answer is never. That is the gap we need to close. Let me tell you about Margaret, 68 years old, a woman who had been managing her blood pressure with medication for 4 years. Her daytime readings were well controlled. Her cardiologist was happy. Her numbers looked good on paper. But Margaret kept waking up with headaches. Not every day, but 3 or 4 mornings a week. A dull pressure behind her eyes when she first opened them. She assumed it was sinuses, or the pillow, or poor sleep. A 24-hour ambulatory blood pressure monitor told a completely different story. Her daytime pressure was beautifully managed. But from midnight to 5 in the morning, her diastolic was climbing into the 90s consistently. Her medication, taken in the morning, was wearing off precisely when she needed it most. Adjusting the timing of her medication, moving 1 dose to the evening under her physician's guidance, resolved the morning headaches within 2 weeks. Please, always speak with your own doctor before making any changes to your medications or treatment plan. I share Margaret's story not as a prescription, but as a window into how much difference timing can make. Now let me give you the information you need to start protecting yourself with clear, actionable steps. First, know your target numbers, including the ones that matter at night. A healthy blood pressure for most adults over 60 is below 130/80 during the day. But your nighttime diastolic, the bottom number, should ideally be below 80, and your overall pressure should dip by at least 10% from your daytime average. If you have never had a nighttime reading, you do not actually know your real cardiovascular risk picture. Second, invest in a validated home blood pressure monitor and begin checking your pressure at different times of day. And yes, occasionally in the evening, 1 to 2 hours before bed, and again first thing in the morning before you rise. Log the numbers. A pattern across 2 weeks tells your doctor far more than a single reading in a clinical setting. Third, discuss ambulatory blood pressure monitoring with your physician if you experience morning headaches, unexplained fatigue after sleeping, or if your daytime readings are borderline but managed. A 24-hour monitor wears like a cuff and takes readings automatically every 20 to 30 minutes across an entire day and night. It is the gold standard for identifying non-dipping patterns. Fourth, address the behaviors that directly disrupt nighttime diastolic dipping. Poor sleep architecture, specifically a lack of deep, slow-wave sleep, is one of the strongest predictors of non-dipping. Alcohol within 3 hours of bedtime raises nighttime pressure significantly. High sodium meals in the evening cause fluid retention that sustains diastolic elevation for hours. Even sleeping on your back instead of your side can worsen pressure regulation if you have undiagnosed sleep apnea, which is itself one of the leading causes of non-dipping in adults over 60. Fifth, if you are on blood pressure medication and you experience morning headaches, check with your doctor about chronotherapy, the timing of your doses. For many patients, shifting at least one antihypertensive dose to bedtime dramatically improves nighttime diastolic control without changing the medication itself. The evidence for evening dosing has grown substantially over the past decade, and it is a conversation worth having. The diastolic number, the one on the bottom, the one that most people dismiss because it is smaller, because it sounds less dramatic, because nobody talks about it with urgency. That number, elevated while you sleep, is one of the most consistent predictors of silent stroke in adults over 65. And the most frightening part is not the risk itself. It is that millions of people are walking around with elevated nighttime diastolic pressure and no idea, because they have never been checked at the time when it matters most. You now know what to look for. You now know what questions to ask. That knowledge is protection. Check your nighttime numbers. Have the conversation with your doctor. Do not assume that a clean daytime reading is the full story. Your cardiovascular system does not stop working when you close your eyes, and neither should your attention to it.